find some fame. Don't start the cocaine. Yeah. But we could always find some mindless ways to keep entertained. Yeah. We've got something. Don't take much to have some fun. Grab your shades and we'll do some people watching. Keep all your designer drugs. I just wanna smoke your love. We've got something. People watching us. Mama told me if she consumes your mind, hold on for dear life. Yeah. Woo. Don't need an island or a private plane to bet to these days. Yeah. We've got something. Don't take much to have some fun. Grab your shades and we'll do some people watching. Keep all your designer drugs. I just wanna smoke your love. We've got something. People watching us. Can I get more volume now? Let the djembe while we lay and sunbathe. Strangers living out their lives. Place your bets on all them. I could search to no end. Now you can say it's all in your hands. We've got something. Don't take much to have some fun. Grab your shades and we'll do some people watching. Keep all your designer drugs. I just wanna smoke your love. We've got something. People watching us. Don't take much to have some fun. Grab your shades and we'll do some people watching. Keep all your designer drugs. I just wanna smoke your love. We've got something. People watching us. Yeah, you can tell we got something good because the people are watching us.
You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host. What? Where is he? Maybe he's... Oh, wait! Yeah! Oh my God! It's the end game, guys! Can you believe it? We're here! It's finally here! Avengers Endgame drops tonight.
Tonight?
Can you all believe it?
I just had a heart attack.
I know.
It was
This is
you-
the night.
minor heart attack.
You really did.
I'm
almost.
Sean Sebastian, and this is
Keith Cheatham.
Keith Cheatham.
Whew, man, guys.
That's how Siri says his name, Cheatham.
Cheatham.
No, she says it correctly because I taught her how to properly say it.
Well, on my phone, she doesn't. She
Well, you
says,
have- you
"What
have
do
to-
you want to say to Keith Cheatham?"
Yeah,
Cheatham.
you have to go in and tell her, Siri, call him, and then you have to say it the right way.
You have to say Keith Cheatham,
Yeah.
and it'll say Cheatham.
Yeah,
it'll
and
respond
then
correctly.
she'll be less stupid. Yeah, you have
Okay.
to teach Siri things.
Well, will she
sometimes.
say Avengers Endgame correctly?
Oh my God! You said it. It just
It's like
chills up my
it's
back.
like Pee-wee's Playhouse. Like the secret word is in game. Anytime you say in game, yeah, you gotta
You
get
know, I
excited.
didn't even think about that. If I would have thought about it, we could have had that as a special little
That would've
trigger
been
word
awesome. Trigger
throughout
warning.
this night.
You could have shown
thrown it up on
Zombie
the screen.
Genie and Cowboy Curtis.
Yeah.
Lawrence
Shoot.
Fishburne. That's awesome. I can't wait.
I was going to say, guys, we're not that far away, which is why we are airing at 8 p.m. tonight, a special time, specifically
Yes.
because as soon as 9 o'clock, guys.
Just a few
Just
short
keep your watches
hours.
up.
I'm worried
9
that
o'clock.
people are gonna like get used to this time frame and like it better.
If
And
they
then
do, then maybe we'll think about switching.
Yeah, we might have to do
But the
something.
thing is 9 o'clock, we're done.
we're out.
We're out of here. We're heading to see Endgame, and
Peace
that's
out.
it.
It doesn't even matter
It's
if
over.
like we finish like what we're talking about at
No.
9 o'clock. We're just gonna walk off
It's gonna be
screen and
mics
go
dropped.
see the movie. Yeah,
That's right.
Yep.
yeah.
What are you all thinking right now?
I don't even know.
I'm past the point. Like I no seriously. Like throughout the week and throughout the months leading up, like I
Yes.
just kept thinking, oh, how's this gonna work or what's gonna happen?
Yep.
And then as it got to like today, and it really
It sank in.
It did, and
Yeah.
it dawned on me. It's like, oh man, tonight I'm gonna see it. Like I got super pumped. Like
Yep.
I was putting the truck up at work, like listening to like the
You
the
lifted the whole truck
soundtrack.
up.
He
I
because
did.
He
Lift the
lifted
whole
up like
thing.
the Hulk.
But I did. I had the soundtrack to the first Avengers playing, and I was like, oh man. I just kept thinking like
I watched
just
Infinity
so
War
many
last
things.
night.
Yeah.
You did?
I did. Yeah.
Streamed it on Netflix.
I did.
Is
I
that the
watched it.
last?
No, I got
one?
it on Vudu.
Oh,
so I watched it on
okay.
there.
I'm telling you guys, it's almost here. But you know what? Instead of talking about all the hype that Endgame is bringing, why don't we bring it down a little bit
Well,
with talking about another movie that
you'd have to bring it way
You're
down.
bringing. Okay.
we're bringing it way down.
You have
Way
one
down.
comic book movie that's going to make fans so excited. I mean, it's going to
Billions
make
of
billions,
dollars.
and we have another comic book movie that can't even meet its budget. So,
Yeah.
Should we just dive into it and get it over with?
12.
12 right in.
12. All right, here is our review of
Turd Burger.
none other than Hellboy. The following is a review by Keith Cheatham. In the pantheon of heroes, those timeless characters that inspire and amaze us, we often see reboots and remakes aplenty. With each generation, new actors take on the roles of characters such as Batman and Superman, because characters like these are too iconic to let lie. Then, we have characters that never quite reach that notoriety. They could possibly, if given the care and devotion more established characters often receive, but in the present, where even the heavy hitters like Superman are not done justice, what chance do characters such as Hellboy have? Directed by Neil Marshall and starring David Harbour, Hellboy, 2019's release, is a reboot of the franchise that started as a popular comic series from Mike Mignola and had found life on film twice from director Guillermo del Toro. Del Toro ultimately was unable to get a third film in his franchise off the ground, and Lionsgate decided to reboot the series to be darker, bloodier, and more attuned to the comic series with an R rating. First looks at Harbour as the titular hero were stunning, and fans everywhere, though disappointed at the loss of Hellboy 3, were excited to see a more faithful comic adaptation. What we received instead was an abomination. Hellboy definitely earns its R rating, but where films such as Deadpool and Logan use the R rating to their benefit to create a mature atmosphere and set a darker tone, Hellboy only accomplishes gratuitous gore and language just because it can. In fact, the very first line of dialogue sets the tone for the film by unapologetically dropping an F-bomb for no reason other than they can. Every use of language and gore after this bid the same way. I'm no prude, but the film is so dull in its exhibition that when we get to the over-the-top violence, everything just feels strange and out of place. The Kill Bill films too were over-the-top bloody, but they were stylistic, and the whole film's tone was created around these set pieces. Hellboy has no style or substance. Outside of an R rating that is truly unnecessary for this film, this movie has little else to offer. The comics always had a macabre sense of humor that gelled well with Del Toro's, and this film tried to maintain that sense of humor, but dialogue and line delivery is so atrocious, proper with flying F-words, that the humor becomes cringe-inducing. Most of the film, while trying to be darker and follow the plot points from the comics as closely as possible, still attempts to retain some familiarity from the fans of Del Toro's films, to the point that I have to wonder why they didn't just hire Del Toro to make his third film in the first place. Indeed, it would have been way better than what we've received. Much of the comics are riddled with humor, occult and supernatural and religious themes. And with such a hodgepodge of lore, it's easy to make the plot come off as silly and convoluted. Marshall tried to give the creatures and plot in this film realism, but ends up taking the material too seriously, ultimately giving the plot less credibility. The only saving grace of this film is David Harbour, who is genuinely a great choice as Hellboy. He's got the attitude, the snark, but even Harbour throughout much of this film appears as if his heart is not truly in it. Likewise, any solid performance he could give is made all the more difficult by horrendous prosthetics that leave his face and mouth looking like the recipient of a terrible facelift. Hellboy is hideous looking, and not because he's a demon, but because he can't even emote with his face, creating a main character that's hard to relate to. Ultimately, there are little redeeming qualities to this film. Yes, there are some awesome action pieces, and while some of the gore isn't necessary, it is still sometimes fun to watch the havoc. Creature designs are bizarre and incredible, and one aspect of the movie I loved, though they too didn't stray too far from what Del Toro delivered. On the downside to this, while the creature designs were amazing, the CG was often at times abysmal, and looked as if these creatures were the Sci-Fi Channel monster of the month. There are a few laughs to be had, though more at the film's expense than at actual humor, but it's just not enough to save this film. I give Hellboy 1 out of 4 stars. One out of 4 stars.
Yeah. It was rough.
It was that bad?
That's how I felt after watching that movie.
Well, okay, all right. First, I'm going to say this as a shout. It's not really a shout out. It's kind of, a terrible reason as to why I had to read your review. But I think it's going to make it even harder. The fact that your pup of many years,
he was
14
14
years
Wow.
old.
Yeah, in doggy years, that's even,
Old pup. And unfortunately passed away this past week.
Yes, he did.
Or they put him down. They had to put him down. He was just too old. And but unfortunately,
that's what happens when you get too you get too
Just
old. They're
put
just
you
like,
down.
it's like, come on, we gotta kill you now.
Yeah, I mean, if Hillary Clinton was president, that's what would happen.
True. But yeah, he was in rough shape. But yeah, I.
So the reason I brought that up was not to bring the mood down further, but it's like,
Well,
I know I did, and it's like, if there's one thing that could have helped,
I had
bring
to
the
watch
mood
a horrible
up,
movie,
then you had to
and then
review
my
a
dog
horrible
died?
film,
Yeah.
exactly. So you called me and you were like, "Hey man, if you don't mind, could you read this review for me?"
In fact, I think he died because I had to watch that movie.
that's very, very possible.
It's so
It was
bad.
bad.
It was so awful.
Movie so bad it killed my dog.
So-
it was a very bad movie.
So I'm sorry that yes, you had to endure that, but
Yeah.
please explain a
Well,
little bit
thank you.
further about Hellboy. 1 out of 4 stars.
Yeah, definitely 1 out of. And here's the thing, like, I was fond of Guillermo del Toro's movies. I loved Hellboy 1 and 2, and they made a profit, but it was kind of a middling profit. Like they weren't a huge blockbuster success. They made enough to be profitable. So when it came around the time for the third one, Lionsgate was kind of like, well, let's kind of do something different and see if we can get that blockbuster cash. They lower budget. This one I think only had like 60 million budget, very R-rated because they were trying to get in that darker tone because the comics, have that macabre tone. I mean, it's very, it's supernatural, religious, and horror-esque. I mean, because they follow all these types of like creatures and stuff that are real like myths in different cultures.
Yeah.
And they kind of take that blend. And I mean, it's not that Guillermo del Toro didn't do that. It's just he opened it up, and I mean, it's definitely definitely PG-13, and definitely he aired like the comics have that type of humor that he has in his movies, but he leaned more on that than some of the darker aspects.
But it was also more his style.
But it was.
I mean, that's Guillermo del Toro
It was
didn't shy
more
away from
his
that
style.
before.
He went with his strengths, but he still like the first movie was still very dark. The second one wasn't because he didn't follow any of the comic stories. The second one was his own original story with these characters, but still tied it into like the overarching plot of like he was setting it up for the third one to be, Hellboy's supposed to be the beast of the apocalypse, and he brings about the apocalypse, and that's what he was setting the third one up to be a little bit more dark and to finally hit that climax, but he never got to make it. They took this one as they wanted to reboot it. David Harbour honestly was an excellent choice. He just was not giving, I think, good material or direction because he definitely has like the wisecracking down and the tone, and I mean he looks the part, sounds the part. He's a talented actor, so I know he probably could have done it
Yeah.
given the right direction. But there's a lot of times throughout the movie where even he's just kind of like, I can't believe I'm doing it. Like he doesn't
I
have
know.
that. Like when
Right.
you watch Ron Perlman
Yeah, he's
has
in it.
that
Yeah.
swagger.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
has that. He's in the role.
Well, it
there's-
helps too because I mean Guillermo del Toro was a huge
Oh, yeah.
fan of
Oh,
Ron Perlman, and I think
he's a huge fan of Ron
specifically
Perlman.
picked him for that
a huge
role.
fan of Hellboy, and I mean Ron Perlman was made for that role, honestly.
Yeah.
and it was a good match. And to be fair, I thought David Harbour was just as good a match, if given the right talent
Right.
to make the movie. But everything was just so goofy. Like it's supposed to be this dark and serious film, and it's kind of the same thing DC did when they with like their fault, where everything's so pessimistic and dark, and it's like. They do that, but with some kind of goofy subject matter. That's why Guillermo del Toro's worked, is because you have these creatures and subject matter that's hard to take seriously. So when you put that little lighter and comedic spin on it, it's easier to accept. When you have, I was talking to Brandon about like just the opening of the film is about the villain, the Blood Witch, Nimue. Is like this, that's her name.
even as soon as you start talking about it,
But
it's
that's
like,
her name
whoa,
in the comic.
whoa,
But I mean,
whoa.
they cut and it starts off, and I mean, all of this is from the comics, to be fair.
Is that,
But it starts off with her and
Mila Jovovich?
yeah, Mila
Okay.
Jovovich. It starts off with her and King Arthur and Merlin. And my immediate thought is, even though I know this plot is from the comics, just the way it opens up, I immediately think of Transformers First Night, and I'm like,
Oh.
that's a bad thing to start
Yeah.
thinking about as soon as
Yeah.
your movie begins. So you get that, and it's goofy because I mean it follows the plot of the comics where King they cut her up and put she can't die, so they take her parts and they put them in boxes and separate
Damn, that's like Braveheart.
yeah, they separate but I mean but she can't die, so they put all the body parts in different
the body
boxes
parts are, like,
and
moving?
they spread it across the planet so that she can't rejoin because she's undying.
Oh,
And then
wow.
it shows the shot of like King Arthur with her head in the box, and she's like vowing vengeance. It's like, this is goofy. It's
Yeah.
like it's supposed to be the serious
Right.
moment, but you can't take it seriously.
Basically, I mean,
And it sets the tone for the whole movie.
Yeah.
yeah. It's well, like I said in my review, the very first thing you hear is Ian McShane's character explaining the Dark Ages, and he's like, "They're called that for effing good reason." And, and I'm like, I was like,
yes.
"Where did this come
Yeah.
from?"
Just
That was
random-
literally like the
yeah.
first. It's like
opening
he's like,
line.
it was the Dark Ages,
Yeah.
and they're called that for effing good reason. And
Well,
I'm like,
we talked about that too when Logan came out. It was
Yeah.
just like, just because you give it an R rating doesn't mean you have to drop the
Yes,
F-bomb in
I mean,
every sentence.
Right, Patrick
I mean,
Stewart was
sometimes it
dropping
makes
it way
sense.
too much.
And there's the
But
thing.
sometimes it just doesn't even fit that line
for
of dialogue.
for some of
you
the
to-
characters and for Wolverine, it made sense. It didn't make sense
Yeah.
for Patrick Stewart. But at least with Logan and with Deadpool, like they use the R rating to set that tone, and it fits.
Oh,
I feel like
yeah.
they never used the R rating for anything in this movie other than foul language and gore.
Yeah.
And even the gore makes sense for what's happening,
Right.
except that it's so
It can be justified.
It's so excessive in this, and none of the rest of the movie is over the top that way.
Well, and one thing that I remember you saying in your review, and I actually, I've seen the first Hellboy. I know that Golden Army was
haven't seen
better
Golden
reviewed.
Army?
I haven't seen
Okay.
Golden
Yeah,
Army.
that one actually was reviewed better. I mean,
Yeah.
the both
Better.
both were
We're
decent
way better
films,
than this
yeah.
one.
They
We're
both
given way better
critically
reviews.
both got great reviews. I think the first one had like an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, and then Golden Army had like an 88. So I mean,
But
it
the
wasn't
thing
that
is
far
I remember
off.
you saying in your review specifically, it's like as you were just seeing how this movie was put together, and even seeing like the creature designs, it harkened back to which so much of it harkens back to the comics
anyway, yeah.
But it's like if you're already going to have some of the same set decoration and production design, why not? Why didn't they just go ahead and let Guillermo del Toro finish out his
And
trilogy?
I think
It
part
doesn't
of
make any
that
sense.
is he wanted that big finish, and they wanted a smaller budget for this movie. And I think part of it is they didn't want to give him the money, and he was unwilling to make just any story. He wanted to finish, his story.
Yeah.
And so I don't think they could ever come to agreement there, so they went their separate ways. But my thing is, maybe you should have given him what he wanted, because
Yeah.
you would have. Because at least his movies.
Look at what you ended up
Yeah, I
with.
was saying his movies were at least profitable. They may not have been the huge blockbusters they wanted, but they made money. This one's not making any money.
No.
It's
No.
completely bombed. Critics don't like it. Fans don't like it. It's all. I mean, it dropped. I think like 68% in its
Yeah,
second
from
week.
first to second
Week to
weekend.
week?
From its
Yeah.
first week to its
Gosh
second week, it
sakes.
dropped
Yeah.
by 68%. That is terrible.
abysmal.
It was like from 6 million down to like
Yeah.
3.8
Yeah.
million.
It's probably even though they intentionally gave it a small budget, it's probably not even going to make that back, which is
No,
terrible.
no, they
Yeah.
even. I was going to say that we looked up the budget and we thought it
Yeah.
was going to be in like hundreds of
No,
millions,
it
but
wa-
it
it
wasn't.
wasn't
It was
that
like
high.
50, 60.
55 or 60.
And
yeah.
but even then, it's
When
still
it comes
not
to the
gonna make,
CGI,
it
you
may
could
break
tell.
even. But even
See, I noticed that from the trailer. There was
Yeah.
a scene where they were like outdoors, like near some woods or something, and Hellboy gets hit and flies,
Yeah.
like and crashes through
Yeah,
some
when he's
trees or
fighting the
something.
giants, yeah.
And I'm just like, that looked terrible for 2019. Like, come on.
The creature designs were honestly really awesome. I loved like the way all of them looked. The problem was they all looked fake. Like their designs themselves were cool and reminiscent of the comics and of course the original. Like I said, they look similar to something Guillermo del Toro would do, but that's also kind of how the comics are anyway.
yeah,
So I loved the creature designs. I was like, okay, these look really cool. The only problem is it looks like they're fighting cartoon characters almost.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly,
sci-fi.
right.
It's
Right.
bad. It's like, it's awesome you took that much time to develop and create like these designs for these creatures, but then when you give a CGI that looks so terrible,
Yeah.
it's like you wasted all that time making them look cool for no reason because now it's hard to watch when he's punching something you can obviously tell isn't there.
Right.
One of the things I appreciated about Del Toro's Hellboy was the practical effects. Like, I mean,
Yes.
all of it, it's all costumes and it's all makeup. And like, there's not a
Prosthetics,
lot
yeah.
of CG in those movies. I mean,
No, there really isn't.
there's very little. But yeah, all of those prosthetics and stuff look so amazing, just
Yes.
like Pan's Labyrinth. And I mean,
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
very awesome looking for the time that it was.
Well, I was
going
gonna
to
say
shot.
it's funny because you can go back and watch those, and they do have their age to
Yeah.
them, and
Oh,
that,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
part of the problem with any kind of
Oh, yeah.
prosthetic or natural, that it doesn't age well. Sometimes it ages beautifully, and I think that this being the kind of film that it is, I don't think the original's aged too well, but then again, I don't think that they necessarily required a reboot. But
didn't
also,
age,
they
that
didn't age
poorly,
poorly.
yeah.
But I looking at Hellboy, again, like you said, seeing some of the first images of like still images of David Harbour as Hellboy,
When they
looked impressive.
very
But beyond that, the moment you see a trailer drop and he's acting like
starting to talk,
it
it's
looked
awful.
pitiful.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
first
Pitiful.
poster they released of him as Hellboy, I thought, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. Like, he looks awesome. And then, I mean, the image was very dark anyways because they were trying to go for that aesthetic. But then when you see him actually interacting and trying to move his mouth and he
Yeah.
can't, his mouth is stuck like this the whole entire. I'm like, it's awful. I was like, he can't even like talk. And
Right,
It's like,
right.
And it is. It's really sad. And I mean, the acting was. I mean, Ian McShane's a great actor. David Harbour is fine. They had. I mean, even Mila Jovovich can be. I mean, good. I mean, she's
Yeah.
been in some terrible movies,
Oh,
but
yeah.
she can also
Resident
be a
Evil.
good. Yeah, she can also be a good actress.
All
That's her
10 of
claim.
them.
Yeah, that's her claim to fame.
Yeah, all what 7 of them?
Oh yeah, there's like
That's-
7 or 10. I don't even know.
But yeah, I mean, and the dialogue is bad too. And that was another problem. Is like they're not acted well, and then you have these clunkers of lines being thrown out. Like, I mean, even like I said, that opening line just set the tone. When I heard that line, it's like this whole movie is going to be
like
one
this.
bad line
Yep.
after the other.
Yeah, you can almost tell immediately. Like,
And they try to have
sets,
like
yeah.
because I mean Hellboy is a smartass. I mean that's his
Yeah.
character, and they try to have that back and forth that Guillermo del Toro does really well in
Mm-hmm.
his. Like I mean like just him going. I mean, okay, they had Jeffrey Tambor in the originals, and the back and forth between Ron Perlman and him is terrific.
Yeah.
Any character he interacts with, they have tried to have that back and forth in this, and it falls flat. It's not the same because the dialogue's so bad and the delivery's so bad, and it's not witty. And the originals were, and the comics are, and that's really, I mean, the whole movie just kind of falls flat.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be more faithful to the comics, and they do use like 3 or 4 different stories, and that's another problem. Is they tried to be faithful to the stories, but they kind of piece together these parts, and everything just kind of jumps around. It's
Yeah.
like they don't really. If they had chosen a single storyline and characters to follow, it would have been fine.
Right.
But instead, we just get, like I said, this mishmash that wasn't good, even though it is closer to the comic story.
So ultimately, pass on Hellboy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally pass on it. Not worth checking out. Instead, well, they launched it at a perfect time. You have plenty of other things to go see in the theater.
Oh, yeah,
including
definitely.
Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Endgame! Oh my gosh, I said it! Did I say it? I said Endgame. Can you believe it?
Not a safe
Just
word.
broke some eardrums.
Yeah, you did.
People
oh
listening
my
tomorrow.
gosh. Yeah. So you know what we have? What else we have to talk about though?
I don't even know.
Some fantastic, amazing news. Now we're on the up and up, guys. From here, after Hellboy, it just gets better.
Yeah, we'll leave that turd behind.
Exactly,
and
it's
go on to
gone.
future brighter things.
Thanos has snapped it away.
Oh.
So what we have instead are some good headlines to talk about. Because guess
boy.
what? Victory has been achieved. It has been accomplished. Netflix can still chase Oscar gold.
Did we ever think that they wouldn't be able to?
You know, I don't know. For a while.
I think maybe briefly when Spielberg first started spouting it, but the moment
Spielberg. I think
He's still upset over the end game.
Oh, yeah,
Like, you
he's
still
still-
got him
he's
all
still-
worked
he's
up.
still mad.
Like, he can't
But
even talk.
the moment the DOJ came out,
I
was
just
like,
think
we don't think
who
you
could
could do
Spielberg be?
this.
I feel like
Steven-
that's like his
it's- you
alter ego
just-
or
It
something.
is. It's like the guy who
Spielberg.
copies all of his
I
work.
feel like that's his that's his wrestling alter ego.
Oh, yeah.
Spielberg gets in the ring with Hulk Hogan. It's
Spielberg.
But yeah, the moment like the DOJ came out, it was like,
Yeah.
you probably can't do that. I was like, yeah, the Academy's probably going to back off now because even though they might be able to fight that, they're not going to want to. They're just
Right.
like, yeah, we don't want to get into any.
See, I don't even feel like the Academy ever really had any skin in the game.
I
felt
don't
like
either.
they had outside people pushing like Spielberg or Spielberg, and
Spielberg.
I don't think they ever really had like a care. It was just like as long as you're following our rules, then we're fine. I mean that's. I just don't feel like they were ever really
Well,
pushing that.
I pretty much agree too. I think that ultimately, I don't know if this was just a cat and mouse game, and maybe it was just to drum up publicity. That's what it seems like. You know, especially with Spielberg coming out in the comments of like, no, I really do. You know, I like Netflix movies, and
Yeah.
you know, I just think that ultimately it was unrealistic.
But he likes Disney movies too.
Well, of course he does, and he loves Apple movies
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. You know, whenever those come out, it's
Yeah.
like.
He likes getting paid.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, I think this was all just kind of. I do think Spielberg intentionally, or he was intentional about approaching it as a serious issue, but I think very quickly through all the backlash of social media, it quickly was kind of stamped out, and Academy
that's
Board
kind of what
just
the
was like,
Academy's done recently.
Yeah.
They've walked back a lot of things that they've talked about. I mean,
Right.
with these new categories and even like who's hosting or not hosting, and
Right.
there's just so many things that they're having to check themselves on, and I felt like this was just going to be another one of those things. I mean, our headline says that they did not pass a new rule, and I'm like, I don't even know why it was even brought.
Well,
to the
they were
point
going to have
of-
to. They were going to have to modify the rule that was
Yeah.
you only have to show up for 1 week in a Los Angeles theater to be nominated or to be eligible for
Well,
a
I mean,
nomination
and-
of an Academy
And that
Award for Best
only
Picture.
was if they ever were considering of blocking out streaming services. They
Yeah.
would have had to
Yeah.
come up with a new rule to do so. But I really think that they never really considered it.
No.
I think Spielberg was just whatever with his pants in a wad and was like,
Yeah.
well, that's not fair to the rest of us. But then of course now that he's getting streaming deals, I'm sure he's going to back way off. So
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but I do think it has something to do with the fact that, at the end of the day, it was like, I think the Academy's had so much flack over the last year
Oh, yeah.
with all the crap that they've either backtracked on or they've just. It's so much stuff that they just had going on controversially that
I
it's like
think
they
they
finally were like,
knew-
you know what, we're just going to wipe our hands clean of this,
Yeah.
and we're not going to make a big deal out of it. We're going to actually side with the fans
I think,
and
yeah,
with other
absolutely.
indie filmmakers, and it's like, let's stamp this out and not make another.
I think they knew that enough.
You know,
because
any more bad blood.
The the Oscars each year keep losing in the ratings anyways, and I think they knew it's like, well, fans like Netflix, they like those movies. We'd be stupid.
fans like what they're paying for.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're paying $15.99, which I am now for Netflix,
See,
it
and
just went up.
now you have an argument
But
against
again,
them.
no, I don't.
You
No,
know?
I'm going to pay it.
You're
If it's
gonna pay it,
$20
right.
a month, I'm going to pay it
True.
because of the content
Yeah.
that's on there. Like
Yep.
you can't get that anywhere else. You
Yeah.
can't get it with cable. I'm sorry, but it's
Cord
with
cutter.
people do stand behind what they're paying for.
Yeah,
and,
right.
and that's what I'm saying. You've got millions of people that pay for Netflix and streaming services like it, and they're going to defend it because
Yeah.
they want Netflix to keep making good films and good TV series. And if their stuff's not ever going to be given the awards that it deserves, then
Yeah.
they're going to back off and stop making good films. And that's I don't want them to quit making good films. I just watched The Highwayman the other night. I mean, that was a fantastic freaking movie.
It is.
And I'm like, they need to keep pumping more and more movies. The Dirt was a great film.
Which it's funny you keep saying that, though, because it's like, and I'm glad, well, you're one of probably the few people that will continue to keep paying the price that they're paying, because that's the first thing that most people will argue about is if they keep raising it, well, eventually I'm gonna stop, So,
I mean,
but then again,
if it was $100 a month, then yeah. But I'm just saying, like, for what I'm getting,
exactly,
I'm getting way more than what we're paying.
Well, and that's the thing is, it's like they're gonna have to increase the prices because we already know that Netflix is in the red
they run
with
red.
all of the content that they produce already.
Right.
So with that being the case, it's like they have to find.
See, that's one of the
streams.
things that I feel like with them putting movies in a theater, even if it's just one theater so far that they've purchased, and they're going to show some of their films in. But if they ever do a chain, or if they ever get their movies in AMC theaters to be shown, and they start making big bucks off of them. I mean, just think if Netflix did an Avengers movie, if they had produced a movie like that, and made $1 billion, then they're out of. I mean, they're doing good. So I'm just saying, they're going to eventually work their way to that point to where they're going to make more money off ticket sales, and it may actually. They're not ever going to lower the price, but it may slow down the speed at which they're raising the prices. Yeah. I mean, nobody's ever going to backtrack and say, "Oh, we're making money this way, so now we're going to take you back down to $12 a month."
Of course,
it's not going to happen. But I
mean, I'm with Sean. I pay for a couple of different streaming services, and I'd much rather pay the prices for those than to ever. I mean, I can't. There's nothing I really watch on cable anymore. Anyways, I do have PlayStation View for a select few shows. And that's it. And even that, I'm like, I'd much rather have Netflix and Hulu. And,
right.
and
if it comes to actually making a decision, Netflix is still going to be top dog.
Yeah. If it came to cutting prices, PlayStation View's going away. If I had cable, it would go. I mean
even Amazon. I mean, most people who pay for Amazon Prime are paying because they want
2-day shipping.
They want the shipping.
Or
and
same-day shipping.
Yeah, exactly. But they're not paying that premium for the content that they're producing because they're not producing hardly anything.
Right.
They've got a couple of good TV series shows on there, but I mean, there's no real good movies other than.
Well, I was gonna say it's a lot of mostly with them.
Manchester
It is mainly like a series, TV series that they're producing.
Yeah,
on there, which I think is so funny because bringing that into the argument, it's like we have these other streaming services that are not producing nearly as much content, or at least even scooping up nearly as much content that's already produced, like Netflix is.
Yeah,
and yet on the TV front, it's like we have been seeing Amazon Prime, Hulu. All of these other streaming services that are not necessarily in the movie-making business.
But they are doing
But they are doing TV series or mini-series, and they're getting nominated for Emmys. So it's like, again, to go against that argument of, just because you stream it on your TV doesn't necessarily mean that it's a TV, series.
Oh, yeah,
it's a movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that, this was just something that thankfully was quickly stamped out. They've officially ruled that they're not going to make any rule that is going to somehow be ousting any streaming service from being able to be eligible for a nomination at the next year's Oscars.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I mean, it is a victory in Netflix's court because they've been fighting this battle.
And I think they deserve it with some of the films that they've been producing.
Exactly.
They definitely deserve some accolades.
And isn't that what it comes down to? I mean, the content should speak for itself. And if the content is worthy of the award.
But I think the best film deserves the
win.
award. Yeah, exactly.
Or at least the nom.
Basically, if you... And this is getting tricky there because the Academy will definitely fight against this one. But heck, if you make a straight-to-video movie that's better than some of the Best Picture winners,
like The Sand.
Yeah, like The Sand. But I'm just saying, if you make something that is so good that it's better than anything else out there, it deserves recognition. And just because it doesn't air in the platform you feel it should premiere in. Doesn't mean it's any less good.
Could you imagine? Wait a minute. Think about this. Could you? I just thought this popped in my head. But if they would have went through with the most popular category, Sharknado, at one point was the most popular film.
That could have won.
That would have won a freaking Oscar.
But hold on, no. But only if. But see, here's the thing, and this is what Sci-Fi would have to do: is they would have to put Sharknado for 1 week in a Los Angeles theater. And if they could get nominated for that most popular film,
that would
and here's
be
the thing:
awesome.
Tell me right now, with the way the internet works today, you can't sit there and tell me you wouldn't have trolls that would immediately heighten the popularity of a film just to get it an Oscar win.
Imagine.
I mean, I would love to see The Lights.
If The Room had come out,
Yes.
if The Room had come out at the top with the best, that would be
no doubt.
Tommy Wiseau would have an Oscar. That would be
exactly.
awesome.
Think about that. That's insane.
I want this to happen now.
I do
I want
too.
there to be a popular film category.
Just so we control the Oscars. We already know they're in shambles, so why not just troll them?
Well, I mean, Hollywood seems to be. People keep talking about how film is crashing down, and that Hollywood is going to burn soon, and all of this, financially speaking.
Right.
And I'm just like, to go after and put a target on Netflix's back, and the possibility
They
of
can
them,
help you right
That's
now.
what I'm saying. That's what another reason the Academy should back down from any kind of talk like this, because they're shooting. I mean, the Academy is Hollywood. They're shooting themselves in the foot if they, ostracize someone like Netflix.
Yeah.
And so not allowing them to be a part of the Academy Awards and not allow and not helping push them forward to show stuff in theaters, that's a moneymaker for Hollywood.
And I think they've proven that. I
Yeah.
think they've proven that this time around with all the flack they got from last year and all their stupid decisions, but also with making this decision. I really do think they're finally catching on, and they're realizing, okay, we need to be a little bit more open, because our days are numbered if we keep going down this path of, actually, putting the targets on people's backs that could help us and actually resurrect the love of movies, which is exactly who are subscribing to Netflix and watching the content that they're producing and making it popular. So absolutely, I think good victory for Netflix there, and I think for everybody who watches, say that again, Keith. You know why?
That again, Keith.
Victory! Because victory is going to be with us when we watch Endgame tonight. Oh my God!
God.
People are like, oh my goodness,
Well,
what's happening?
And in saying that, kind of going back to, because we haven't seen anything yet, so we really can't do this, but, hashtag don't spoil the end game, but the end is near.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your all's thoughts of what you're going to see tonight? A little anticipation. What are you expecting?
I just don't even want to speculate. Like, I just want it to be what it is.
I know, but,
Yeah.
just,
I mean, honestly, I haven't been let down by a Marvel movie yet, except for maybe Captain Marvel, I would say. That movie let me
okay,
down. It let me down based on my expectations.
Thor 2, but mainly Iron Man 3
I would-
sucked.
Yeah.
Iron Man 3 was
But
awful.
here's after Iron Man 2, I really didn't think Iron Man 3 was going to bring me back to the way I felt with Iron Man 1. Like, that Iron Man was freaking fantastic.
Yeah.
It is.
Still
Fa-
maybe
yeah,
one of the best
yes,
ones they've done.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I
Great
mean,
way to kick
a
off the
lot of the
franchise.
sequels and stuff. I don't really expect to get me like the first one does. Now, Thor Ragnarok is better than many of the other movies.
And honestly, I thought Captain America, each of those movies got better.
They
Winter
did.
Soldier and
Civil
War
War
were
is
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
But Avengers was great. Age of Ultron wasn't
It was
as
okay,
good.
Yeah.
Infinity War was
Spectacular.
Fantastic.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so I know that Marvel is going to knock it out of the park with Endgame.
With this being the
Like, I'm
culmination,
confident.
of this entire story arc,
Yeah.
and the Russos and Kevin Feige both have said that this really is the closing of a chapter. Like they said with every movie before, they were always trying to keep you like with the mindset of looking ahead at what's coming next.
Yep.
With this one, they said they didn't want to do that. They wanted this to really be
Be
the
a
closing.
definitive end.
They said they didn't want people to go in thinking, okay, what's coming after?
Right.
They wanted people to go in and realize
No,
that this is
this
the
is-
end
yep.
of
Yeah.
this. I mean, yes, there will be future Marvel movies. I mean, Spider-Man Far From Home's already got, we already know it's coming.
Yeah.
But they still wanted this to wrap up everything that had come from Iron Man to this and everything in between. So, I mean, that's just, even that thought is like epic.
No, I mean, when you think about it, you even mentioned that it's the longest running saga in film history, not to mention the highest grossing
Yes.
film saga, but I don't even think there's as many Star Trek movies as there are
no.
Avengers or Marvel
Definitely,
movies.
definitely not successful ones.
No,
So,
no.
Think about that.
I mean,
That's
when
the
you
crazy
add up
thing.
the 70s, 80s, 90s, and
Yeah.
there's still not as many as
I mean, when
there
you're
are.
talking about $17 billion,
Yes.
and just one
Yeah.
franchise,
That's the crazy thing is
insane.
that out of 22 movies, the vast majority of them are good.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I mean, most franchises can't even say that about. I mean, look at Fast and the Furious. Not to say that some of, but I mean, that's 8 movies long at this point, and not all of them are that great.
I think there's like 3 of those that are
So it's like
good movies.
Yeah.
when you have series that haven't even ran as long that are hit or miss, and for the most part, Marvel has won. Yeah, I mean, they have a few that are okay, not spectacular, but they've never really released, other than, like you said, maybe Iron Man 3, a terrible movie.
Well, and I think that it's I don't know. It is kind of crazy because I've been trying to steer clear of all the headlines and everything, and
All the
even
spoilers,
even just
'cause
the
they're
things
out
that
there.
say in-game review, and I'm just like, nah, I don't want
don't wanna
anything.
see it.
And the people who have been putting like little subtitles, it's kind of ticked me off because I'm like one, I don't even want to say it.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Okay, I
Don't
won't
say it.
say it.
I won't
I've
say
only
it.
watched
Yeah.
one trailer. Like I've only watched the original
In-game
trailer.
trailer.
I haven't even watched any of the newer trailers.
Wow, I didn't
So,
know that. I thought you
awesome.
had. You hadn't seen the other trailers?
Well,
Haven't
I've seen one that was
the
2
updated
minutes
ones.
long, but I haven't
Yeah.
seen like the one that just dropped a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I've not watched it. So
Okay.
I don't know.
See, but that's the thing is, it's like so I've been trying to steer clear of the internet, and I think most of the internet has been.
Yeah,
and
most
that's
of the
why
internet's
it's
been
ticked
pretty
me
good.
off that when I see these reviews, early reviews popping up, it doesn't tick me off like if they're just in-game review.
Yeah.
But it's like when you add that subtitle of even just like saying satisfying or not, or even like Screen Rant certified for. I don't want to know that.
Yeah.
Stop telling
Yeah.
me, because now I just expectations are building.
Yeah.
But I agree with you all. I don't think there's any way with this 22 film saga that they're going to end it. I mean, 3-hour film for one.
Yeah.
They're closing up, they're tying up loose ends.
Yeah.
Definitely. But it is interesting because it's like I really am not only excited about how this
How it
ends,
wraps,
how
yeah,
it all
yeah.
wraps, because that was the beautiful thing about Infinity War and how it ended, was to really anticipate, well, how are they going to wrap this
Yeah.
up? It wasn't, we know people are coming back, but how are they going to bring them back? And to think that, we're going to find that out. And if it is as satisfying or even close to being as satisfying as the other films in the franchise, I mean, that is the beauty of the 22 films having been mostly exceptional,
Yeah.
is that going into this, there's
Oh, yeah.
absolutely no doubt in my mind that they're going to pull it off.
That's what excites me, is because and that's what I loved about Infinity Wars, because it ended with them losing. So it's like now it's their turn to come back and actually
Yes.
avenge something.
Yes.
Because and that's what I think it keeps exciting me, is I keep
I'm
I
getting
keep
excited,
thinking,
man.
I keep thinking about the line from the first Avengers that Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., when he says, if we can't defend the Earth, you damn well be sure that we'll avenge it. And it's like that's their moment now, is that they lost. They got their butts kicked, and half of them are gone, and now it's their time to, exactly
it's
like he said,
interesting.
to avenge.
I was going to say,
the
I'm
Earth.
glad you said that. It's interesting because thinking of it that way,
Yeah.
it's like even the other Avengers movies, which first one setting them up and being
Yeah.
exceptional that way, and Age of Ultron being a slightly bigger threat.
Yeah.
But it really is kind of amazing that it's been a whole year. This
Yeah.
is the same story thread. I mean, it really is Avengers 3, but part 2. And it's just crazy to me because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, this really is like the reason all these movies have existed.
Right,
These
yeah.
are the reason that
Yeah.
like this is the culmination of everything that has come before.
Well,
And
what's
it's
also-
crazy that it's like it's finally coming
Yeah,
to
well,
an
what's
end.
great about it is throughout these films, the Avengers have grown to be better together.
Yeah.
Like I think in the first film,
Right.
it's kind of like they have to be together and fight,
Right.
so they do. But in Age of Ultron, they realize that together we can really
Yes.
lay it on any enemy that comes our way.
Yeah.
And then in Infinity War,
They're split.
sometimes you're split.
Yeah.
Well, Civil War splits them up too. But
Yeah.
but with Infinity War, they are split, and there's new people coming in.
Yeah.
Then you have the loss of all of the
Right.
mass loss.
Right.
And I think it's just making them. It's preparing them for this
For
fight.
this.
Yes.
They have to come together to win, and that's
Well,
excites
and
me,
not
yeah.
only just coming together to win, but also in a way, it's like they're coming together for each other.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they have been defeated. Because they finally have been. It's like they finally met their match, and so it is finally like they're in it for not only just to save the world, but
Yeah.
also, to kick ass for each other.
Well,
It's like-
that's what excites, is to know that they have been split apart, and it's the fact that I'm really excited to see them regroup. I'm excited. I mean, because
Oh man! Yeah.
Tony and Captain
and you know
America,
there's that shot
yeah.
in all of the movies. There's
Yeah.
that shot of them, that freaking beauty shot
Oh, of them
of
together,
the
yeah.
Avengers together.
Can you
And it's
imagine,
like, you know it's coming.
when they get them all together?
Yeah.
That huge, it's gonna be great. But I was like, Tony, and
T-minus like
Steve,
3 hours.
Like,
Oh, God.
Captain America and Iron Man have not reconciled yet since Civil War, and that moment's gonna be epic. Like, I can't wait to see them finally be like, okay, we have to put this aside and come together
Yeah.
to defeat Thanos. And it's like there's so many things about this movie that I'm just looking forward to, and I really hope that they knock it out of the park.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
They're going to.
They are.
So
No
speaking
doubt.
of that, we have about 20 minutes before we have
I
to
know.
close this.
I
Yeah.
know.
Go see Endgame.
So what are you trying to say,
I'm
Sean?
trying
Should
to
we
say
move on?
Let's move on.
I think
Do we need to move on to our?
I've held
maybe we
this
should tell
Avengers
some
erection
stories.
as long as I possibly can. So let's just go.
All right, so let's move into then our story time segment.
It's story time, where the podcast members tell their stories.
That's right, it's story time, guys.
Story time.
I like stories.
Story time.
Stories make me happy.
We're gonna tell our stories.
You wanna hear a good story?
Oh God,
Please do tell.
there's a lot of bad things that
Well,
start
what-
off that way.
So, what stories are we telling today, Brandon?
I think we got a good one. In fact, it was Mr. Sean over here who came up with it just before the show started.
Sean had to give us a
That's
good
how
story
on
to
the fly
tell
we work.
because Brandon's story idea was just garbage.
Well, I didn't think it was gonna be garbage,
It's
but then you all told me
garbage.
it was garbage. So I was like,
Just
all right.
come right out and say it was garbage. but-
So I was like, all right, I'll concede. We'll go with Sean's, and it is a better
So
idea.
what is it? What is it?
Our story
I forgot
idea
what I said.
for story time this week is: what was your favorite vacation growing up? We're gonna get a little sentimental this week, you know. Talk
I
about
probably won't, but go ahead.
really. Well, damn. All right. Let's go back to the original idea.
Well, that would exclude me completely.
I have nothing for the original idea,
Yeah.
but for this idea,
Good. You
have
started off,
story.
Keith.
man. So okay, well, summer vacation. No. I think I got a couple, but I mean that are really cemented. Like the biggest I think was when like me and my family and like we used to like my sister, mom, dad would get with my uncle Daryl and Aunt Patsy and Ty and Chase, my cousins, and we would go to Myrtle Beach. We did that about 2 different years, and both of those like I remember like extremely well, just because one is the first time I'd ever been to the ocean before, and two it was just I mean a lot of fun like going like because I mean me and Ty and Chase were very close, and I mean that was like fun to go down there with my family and friends and see Myrtle Beach. And like it was also the first time I read Harry Potter was going down to Myrtle Beach. And then of course when I finished the series, it was when I went on vacation with Neil and his family to Florida. So I started the first book at a beach, ended the last book at a beach.
I
So
do
that was-
remember you telling
so that
me
was
this.
so I
Yes.
mean things like that. And I mean I remember exploring like just all the shops
We're
and
gonna
the
be like, I remember
marine
exploring myself.
yeah.
Oh, God.
I remember sitting in bed at night, a young tot.
I remember
Playing
never
with a young
touch yourself
tot.
with sand in your hand.
It gets very coarse and it chafes and it's awful. No, but yeah, I just remember like the shops and like they had these videos about like the marine life and like just things that I was in elementary school and that stuff was fascinating to me. I
Yeah.
didn't know any of that. I mean, that was a whole new world to me. And I mean, doing goofy stuff with.
I was gonna do the same thing.
We took 2 different vehicles, but I mean, part of the trip, I was with Patsy and Daryl and Ty and Chase, and part of the trip they were with us, like Ty and Chase, and it was just fun. I remember we had walkie-talkies, and we were just like all these trucks, going down the highway. We would sometimes randomly, like the walkie-talkie would pick up the channel they were on, and we would just be like these goofy kids, like goofing around, and of course the truckers were just being nice, and they would play along with us, and like we'd be like, "Oh, this is Rubber Ducky," and they'd make up goofy names, and it was fun. I mean, the fact that they did that, and I mean, I just remember those trips very fondly.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean, what about you?
I remember, and it's funny because it's about a beach too. But
Beaches, man.
yeah, I know beaches be crazy. No, we used to always go. My mom and my dad and I would go with my mom's parents a lot to Florida. Like it was almost. I don't remember a vacation when I was a young child that
When
we didn't go with my grandparents. So I just remember those, and I remember my pop would always walk down the beach, and we'd go out at night. Him and my dad, we'd go out at night and try to catch the sand crabs and stuff that were scurrying across the beach and everything. You had to shine a flashlight on them to see their eyes, and they would just sit still, like a deer in the headlights. We used to just do things like that and go fishing, and my grandfather would throw me in the ocean and scare me to death. And but I'm sure my parents probably didn't like that one of their parents were there at every vacation. I'm sure they wanted to go
Probably
places.
just
But it was like Mimi and Pop always tagged along.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they were paying half or anything like that. But it was like if we would always rent a house on the beach. Like we never, very rarely was it like a condo. We always got like
and that's
a house.
what we usually did
And,
a lot of times.
Do the house?
Yeah, no, condo.
Oh, condo?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I have a lot of fond memories of that and just growing up. We probably went every summer for several years, and then it turned into going to the beach with church members and like doing big family, like 3 or 4 families would go and stay at Destin or somewhere, close by. And, but yeah, that's about all I've got.
Okay,
So-
no, that's good. I think it's funny. I guess everybody who maybe lives like not on the beach, that's their
Has
vacation.
beach
They have
memories?
beach
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
Because it's like that's how. Same
I
with
mean,
my
I got
parents.
great ones from the lake too. I mean, with my family and with you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
that's kind of become now that as an adult, don't have a family. No, it's like that's become my vacation. But it's like that has become my vacation now every year that I look forward to. But definitely when I was growing up, it was going to the beach, and there's so many. I think I'd say at least 3 or 4 times, and it was always a week in the summer at some point. My mom and dad would take off. We'd plan for it. It's kind of cool because we've actually got some old 8mm home video tapes that, and it's weird because I remember glimpses and certain moments. I remember like this. There was this one particular day, and I can't even remember how old I was, that I got a surge.
Oh,
I
yes.
got this alien ring. It was like a
Oh,
little
man.
alien face. I got this shirt. I don't know. I was into aliens. I don't know why. I have really freaking no idea why. And I got
The
this
truth
shirt.
is out there, Mulder.
Yeah.
But like I
right
get
after Independence Day came out.
welcome to Earth, beach. Welcome to Earth, beach. So like, but I
ahead.
got this shirt that had like I don't know. It had like an alien on it. It said "Got Space." I don't know, man. I
Really?
don't know. Bad.
You used to have
But-
like an alien blow up too.
I did,
dang,
and I tried to make like a
Tried to
nothing.
make love to it?
Yeah,
That's
it-
gross.
He explored things.
Did you ask her, do you got space for me?
It was my turn online,
Oh.
No, I honestly did. We tried to make a movie out of it called All Toys Play.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Child's Play
Yeah.
at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, like, so the thing is I don't know, but I just remember that one day because it was like all these things happened. We stopped at like a gas station. We got donuts. I don't know. It was just weird, but it was like as a kid,
can
all
remember
these
so good.
highlights.
Yeah.
And it was just like, man, as a kid, you're sitting there like, this is a really good day. Like, it was as a moment when you're on vacation. I mean, you're with your family and it's fun and you're in a place, you're in a condominium and you're out on the beach and it's cool to go swimming out in the ocean and stuff. But it's like part of it is just, all of that's amazing, but it's more amazing for your parents for different reasons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But for you, it's like when you have one day like that where you remember those specific things, I don't know, it just turns into something special.
No, yeah.
things-
And so-
I agree. The length of the days, I thought it was neat that you mentioned that because, like, when you're a kid,
it's
it
easy.
does
Yeah.
feel like those days are forever.
Yes.
But when you go, like we mentioned, when we go to the lake or when we go
They go
anywhere,
by.
it's like
So
God,
quick.
It just goes by so fast.
Yeah.
But I can remember that too. I can remember when I was, 7 years old or whatever we go, and it did. It felt like every day was just full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was exhausted at the end of the day, and now I just feel like we didn't get enough time.
Right.
And even with my kids, I'm just like, we didn't get enough time to do everything that I
Right.
wanted to do. But I guess when you're a kid, just running along the beach is all you want to do.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
So
it's
now
enough.
there's so many
Yeah.
things that I want for them, and it seems like we don't have enough time to do all
Well,
of it.
and that was the cool thing about even watching some of those older videos where there were so many things that I remembered after watching, and I remembered glimpses of it, but then seeing the video, it was like, oh my gosh, there was a crap ton of stuff we did
Yeah.
that I didn't even remember because as a kid, it is like bouncing from one thing to the next, and
Yeah.
you get bored with it in 5 seconds and you want to
Yeah.
move on. But it's funny how it's like, I really do love going back and watching some of those memories because they do bring back
It's so fun. No, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you do, and it's just. I mean, like you said. I mean, that's. And I think part of it, the being a kid and it being a new experience, is what makes like that.
Oh,
that
yeah.
long.
Yeah.
But I mean, just to have those memories with your family is something that I wouldn't trade for anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sean, even you bringing up the you specifically were talking about church groups, like people from church that you all went. But I even considered it a vacation when I got into middle school and high school when we would do the church trips.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and I
that
mean,
was
I
great.
loved going on those trips. and I considered it as like
Church
a week
camp?
away. Yeah, church camp was like a week away from my parents.
That was like a vacation.
Yeah,
though.
absolutely, and it was like, oh, I'm like, I'm a teenager. I'm cool. I could do it on my own.
Look
you
at
know?
us sleeping.
It's like,
Look at us sleeping in a dorm, learning about Jesus.
that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
But no, and it was just awesome because you'd come away with stories from church camp. Whether it's,
Yeah, we came
Neil,
away with
Neil
stories.
Moon,
Some of
Noonan-
those stories were worse than like public school stories.
Exactly. I was going to say, that's why you went
Yeah.
to church camp, to learn about Jesus, because there was a lot of things Jesus wouldn't approve of
Yeah.
at church camp. So it's like,
Come away from church camp needing Jesus. More like it.
but no, yeah, there were just so many times, like, throughout, I really do look back, and it's like the early years of family vacations where it was like you were leaving it up to your parents to, make those trips and enjoy them.
Oh, yeah.
And then you grow up, and then you have those moments where it's like you're a teenager, and I really do love the fact that I was able to go on those trips with you all.
As an adult, I mean, going up to Boston was an awesome
Oh,
thing.
yeah,
I
that
mean,
was-
it's like,
yeah.
I mean, I have all the because of the family and like those moments. I mean, the beach, definitely Myrtle Beach for me is definitely a significant memory. But I mean, I loved every moment of our vacation up in Boston
Yeah.
too. I mean, because just man, I
Whoa.
can't talk. The historical moments.
It's because of Endgame! Oh my God!
But yeah, this just going to like all those historical sites, and I mean, and it's funny because all the things up in Boston that you should be attracted to, and trust me, I love definitely going to John Adams' birthplace and his house.
Yeah.
Amazed me because I mean,
cool.
he's one historical figure I've always been very fascinated with. But the cigar lounge, even though
That was the best.
that was just such a great moment.
best.
And it's
It-
like
it really
you have
reminded me
all
of our
these
lake
things in
trips,
Boston,
yeah.
but like that there was still awesome. And I mean, it's moments like that where you get to just relax and truly enjoy like the present.
Yes.
That I think makes a good vacation. When you like when we talk about the lake, when we're floating on the raft, or the cigar,
Yes,
when you can just sit there and be in the moment.
Nothing
and
like
you don't have
it.
to worry about anything but
Nothing like it.
Getting hit by a boat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Well-
really all you got to worry about.
That was a little,
Yeah.
dangerous.
For Jacob, you got to worry about if the girl
Snakes.
you're taking photos of is of age or not.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh,
He's
call him
married. He's married now. Call him
Got a
about
ring on finger.
Jacob.
But yeah, I mean, we're so worried about everything going on in life. I mean, work and family, and having to make money to pay the bills. That when you can just get away and not have to worry about anything, it's a good vacation.
Absolutely. And I couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
and that's the
Yeah.
thing I hope we continue to do as we grow up, as
Yeah.
we find these other little ventures
Yeah.
like the lake. So guys, oh my gosh.
Little adventures or little Avengers?
Oh,
Endgame!
Endgame! It's crazy.
It's coming. It's
Oh my
coming.
gosh. But you know what we got to do first?
We gotta let
What?
people know how they can reach us.
Exactly. So how could they reach us, guys? Does
Sean.
anybody want to say?
Well, they could email us
Yeah, that's a good way.
at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com.
They could?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got all of our social info up right now.
Yeah, they could email us. But then there's
Could
all
they?
this other stuff.
Like,
Is
yeah.
it on me right now?
Yeah, hold on. There it
Oh,
is.
look at that.
Right there.
All that
look at-
beautiful
look at all
bouncing
of it.
finger.
Bouncing
Yeah.
all
Yes,
those things.
All those
The
things.
But now-
Facebooks,
all right, now-
the tweeters.
Twitter, Snapchat,
The
Instagram.
tweeters.
What else is there? MySpace. We're on MySpace.
We're not on MySpace.
Go search for us.
Don't go to MySpace. It's like, yeah, we got a music page up. No. So now that info is gone, and you know what else is coming up?
What's coming up?
What?
How they can contact us on our email, Keith.
Oh,
That right there?
That right there.
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
It's that simple.
that's what I
guys.
said earlier.
It really is that. I know.
But you
But I
didn't
guess
throw-
we needed it to do it twice.
we
Yeah.
need to we always got to do it twice.
Because
I get
now
that.
it's in the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So RM Podcast
Yeah.
at Red Moon
Get my-
Productions.
my-
Yeah. And hey, if you didn't check it out today, if you didn't see it today, you can
Oh
get
my gosh,
shut
hold
the
on.
freak up.
He's licking it. He was licking
You're
it.
about to see your end game.